just wanted to give you guys an update. And again, like, this is all stuff that I wish somebody had shown me before. And it's a lot of things that a lot of brewers take for granted. I mean, I definitely take it for granted now. But when you start seeing this is what I'm talking about. Okay, like before, you know, we just had like a nice clear brown top on this. When you start seeing this nice white cap, this like foamy stuff, you know you're really getting close to about 200 degrees. So if you've been running back in and out of the house and like, you know, you keep resetting your egg timer or whatever, when you start seeing this is when it's time to pay attention. Especially, again, if you're doing a 6.5 gallon batch and you only got that little bit of headspace to play with, the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to start seeing little bubbles kind of cracking through here, and then this whole thing is going to go whoosh. And if you're not ready for it, if you're not there to drop that temperature and really drop it, because even when you first turn it down, it's not going to be enough to prevent a boil over. Pretty much, if you're playing the odds, you're gonna dump a beer at least once in your life. So like when this starts to happen, you can kind of stir it, just kind of kick down some of that head that's getting formed. There's a lot of gas trapped in here, you know, with fluid stuck between it. You know, I mean, if you ever look at how bubbles are made, you actually have, you know, gas with just a very small amount of liquid around it, and that's what's taking up all that space. So right about now, if I had to guess, we're definitely probably hitting 200 degrees. So I'll just go ahead and kind of stir this in, see where we're at. And remember, as soon as you hit your boil for a 60-minute batch, boil hops go right on in, and then we're going to kind of roll out of here, which is great because I'm so used to doing these 90-minute boils that just, everything sucks, you know, when you're doing a 90-minute boil. So cool. So we're at 205 right now, so I'm pretty right on the money with that. So again, we're going to come back when this thing's nice and rolling. It's already starting to twist a little bit now and start to move around, so I just wanted you guys to see this. So when you start seeing this doesn't mean go ahead and sit back down on the couch and wait another 2 hours. This means stay close, you're about to start boiling. Okay, so I want you guys to see this. This is right about to dump. Even at 6 gallons instead of my usual 6.5 at least, you can see how close that was to dumping, okay? Caught it right at the mark. So you're just cranking this burner down to like absolutely nothing, just enough to keep that solenoid open and keep it lit. And you're just going to kind of tuck that head right back on in there. You're just kind of folding it in. And then as this boil starts to kind of pick up a little bit, it's a lot more manageable. And again, you're just going to leave the temperature down. You're just looking to keep it at a nice rolling boil. And there's plenty of other videos, guys, showing you how to do that much. So we're going to go on ahead and add our first hop addition and basically start our 60-minute clock. So okay, we're up to a boil, so now I'm going to go ahead and dump in our first hops. Today we're using a hop called Amarillo, and Amarillos are cool as hell as far as I'm concerned. I'm pretty sure it's a Cascade hybrid, it has to be. It has that distinct grapefruit taste. But they're just a really cool alternative to a lot of the other hops that kind of get played out. Everybody uses Hallertau, everybody uses Northern Brewer, everybody uses lots of stuff. And these you don't really see nearly as much of, except in like some of the craft brews. So we're going to go ahead and just add these guys. And depending on how hard I'm boiling, I won't add them all at once. I'll add a little bit, stir, add a little bit, stir, add a little bit, stir. But this is a pretty small hop addition, just 0.8 of an ounce. So, like I said, you're going to see a lot more activity here as those pellets break up and get caught up in those rising gas bubbles and kind of get thrown around. So, again, just so you guys understand this, if you're new to brewing, when you're adding, first of all, this particular beer uses 3 hop additions, all of which are going to be these Amarillo. Now, the reason you're adding hops at different times and not all at once is the longer you boil hops, the more characteristic flavors and aromas you lose. Okay. Now here's, you know, I mentioned during the opening page of this video, or this web page that I've made, I started talking about isomerization. Okay. Now basically, hops are evaluated under what it's called alpha acids. Okay. And basically what that means is you're looking for a percentage of a particular acid within the hop flower. They're like cones, okay? And there's still other things that are inside of there that do contribute to aromas and flavors and all those kinds of things. Now, the reason you're using hops in the first place, in the very first stage, this is what's called the bittering hops. And that's literally just to cancel out the sweet taste of the malt. If you were just to boil it, wort, cool it down, and pitch yeast into it, you absolutely could do that. You would still produce alcohol. You could still carbonate it. You could do everything you would do normally with beer, except it would be really sweet and weird and you wouldn't want it in your mouth, okay? So first of all, you're using hops to add bitterness to the base flavor of the beer to cancel out that sweetness so you have something that's much more palatable, okay? Now, as those alpha acids boil into the wort, okay, they're isomerizing, which means literally the essential oils from the hops are fusing with the molecules of water inside of here and are inseparable, and it just creates a bitterness that you're not really perceiving any specific flavor from. You're not going to get like a lemoniness, you're not going to get a skunkiness, you're not going to get, in this case, like a grapefruit taste, okay? Now adding later hop additions will provide more of a flavor, okay, and it won't create so much of a bitter base, but more of a flavor profile. So adding hops with about 15 minutes left in the boil time is usually called the flavor hops as opposed to the boil hops. And then lastly, you're going to add what are called aroma hops. Now technically, when you just add hops at the end, they're not isomerizing, okay? So it's not actually contributing to your IBUs or your actual overall bitterness. But the thing is, when you dry hop and when you add aroma hops, you're really tasting that stuff a lot, okay? But what you're tasting is the actual components of the hop that aren't necessarily the alpha acids. So it's not actually contributing any more bitterness, but you're perceiving it to be much more hop flavor. You know, there's a lot more hop flavor and a lot more hop aroma. Okay, so those things are still important. So it's important that you do stagger the hop additions. Don't just dump everything in at once. But beyond that, I just kind of wanted you guys to understand why you're doing that, what the benefits are, all that kind of good thing. So we're going to let this roll for 45 minutes, add our flavor hops and Irish moss, and when we come back I'll explain what that stuff is and why you use it. Okay, so we just kind of let the lauter tun keep on running. We ended up with quite a bit more wort, and as you can see, it's nice and thick, so there's still plenty of sugar in there. It's going to be a very viable yeast starter culture. What you're going to end up with, this is what we did last time we made the steam beer. You can see how much yeast I have on the bottom here. Basically, I'm going to fill this wort into one of these jugs with a funnel here, and then I'm just going to stick that in my refrigerator, and I'm going to let that hang out until that beer is done fermenting. Then I'm going to take some of that yeast off the bottom, plop it in there, and mix it up, let that yeast reproduce to a much higher pitching rate than one of those YE smack packs would have provided us. It's free. We already got it. This wort would have just gone down the drain anyway, so it's a great way to save yourself some money and also have a great amount of pitching yeast. So just wanted you guys to see that. That's it. Okay, so outside we got our boil kettle going. We got our beer all put together, our hops are going, all that kind of stuff. There's really nothing to do for literally 45 minutes. That's when our next hop addition is. So we're going to take the time right now to sanitize all the equipment that we need to ferment the beer in, and also chill the wort down with. Now, I'm going to talk about it while I'm bringing it up at this moment. A wort chiller, there's a few different styles. This is called an immersion chiller. Literally what's going on here is we have a copper coil that's going to be immersed into the boiling beer kettle. So if this was boiling kettle full of beer, we're going to literally sink this down into the wort, and the idea is copper is super heat conductive. So what's happening is we're passing cool water, actually as cold as you can get, water through the inside of this copper tubing. Now it's basically like taking a bag of ice, dunking it right into your brew kettle, except that because this copper is so conductive, it's pulling heat right out of the beer, heating the water, and then as the water is passing out of this line, it's sending away all of the hot energy. It's literally just sucking the heat right out of the beer, rapidly cooling it. Now the idea is you want to cool your wort as quickly as possible before other organisms that are naturally present in the air. Now remember, there's yeast all over the place. There's you know, it's just a wild organism. It's on everything. Yeast is everywhere. We're trying to inoculate it with a very specific yeast. In this case, it's actually called Kolsch. That's the one we've chosen to use. So we want this to be good and sanitary. We want our ale pail to be sanitary. We want everything involved to be nice and sanitary from here on out. So what we're going to do is, I have this product called Iodophor, I enunciated Iodophor. I'm from Wisconsin. I'll say whatever the hell I want. And basically this is like an iodine derivative, and the idea is it is like you could literally drink this bottle and you'd be okay. It's a no rinse sanitizer, meaning it wouldn't be toxic to you, but it would make your beer taste literally like sulfur and, you know, just rotten eggs. But you don't have to be mindful of getting it all out. It's not going to make your fingernails turn black and fall off and put you in the hospital. So we're going to take all the stuff that we need to sanitize. In this case, we got an airlock for the top of the for the fermenter. We're going to toss all this stuff in there. One other thing I want to mention is yeast needs a lot of things to survive. It needs oxygen, it needs nutrients, of course, but it also needs trace elements. Okay, and copper is one of those minerals that it does need to be in contact with. So some people will use what's called yeast energizer. There's yeast nutrients that you can add. one of those things that it needs is copper. Okay, so by boiling your immersion chiller in your wort will actually do two